let's spend a moment on how generative AI could impact education. Now, we've already seen some teachers and technologists come out with tools which help you check whether students have pulled that answer out of ChatGPT. But the fact is, there are a lot of classic homework or examinations in the way that we've known them. Essay writing, for example, poem writing. I mean, I'm sorry, but that poem was a bit cheesy, Brad, the one that ChatGPT threw up, but who knows? In years to come, maybe if my prompts were better, they could throw up something far more profound. How does that impact education? And what should we be doing to educate our children at a time when generative AI is as powerful as it is?
I'd say a few things. First, I actually think that the first impact in education is something that people are not talking about. It won't be the impact on students. It will be the impact on teachers. This should be an extraordinarily helpful tool to help teachers grade what students submit. I mean, you think about a lot of work that teachers have to spend, a lot of time they have to spend going through and grading quizzes, exams, essays, and especially for quantitative multiple choice. If it can be submitted digitally, it can be graded by ChatGPT, and you free up an hour of a teacher's time that they can go spend doing something more productively. Now, that's just one slice, and I think that in many ways this technology will probably impact every slice of every classroom, at least for every classroom where the technology is available. Let's not forget, we still live in a world where there are 3 billion people who don't have access to the internet, and there's 650 million people that don't have access to electricity. So let's just talk for a minute about those who do have access to this. I do think that fundamentally you're going to see people use it to prepare for class. I think you're going to see people, frankly, start to iterate in different ways. You may see the nature of assignments change. Instead of just submitting a final product, which is, of course, what students do today, whether it's written by hand or by a word processing program, you may find people submitting their work product that is a series of queries and responses, and then a finished product. Ultimately, I think the best work is going to be work that takes what is generated with this and then edited with human creativity. If there's one limitation to everything that we've seen about generative AI so far, we haven't yet seen it in a single instance create an idea that no human had already created and put up on the internet. And so let's not forget, the biggest advances in knowledge come from insights that no one has yet derived. This is a foundation to help people learn things, discover new things. It's not going to discover everything for us. And I think that's a really important, insight we need to keep in mind.
I want to bring you to the second part of my question, which is about educating young children at a time when answers are available through AI. How are you thinking about this? Because there is the natural temptation to draw answers from a prompt. How should education change?
Well, the first thing I would say is that we're in such early days that in many ways we're gating access to these services so that they're not yet available to young children. And I think that's probably a thoughtful and more measured way for us to go about this. I think we have to continue to hone this from both a reliability perspective and a safety perspective before we let everyone of every age start to use this in whatever way they want. So I think that's a baseline principle that's important here. Second, I do think that this is an extraordinary tool for discovering what's going on in the world, the ability to ask questions and get answers, and from a search perspective, as we've done in our search service, Bing, with links and footnotes, so that we really encourage people not to just take the answers at face value, but use this as a jumping off point to go learn and discover more. And I guess that's the paradigm I would offer the most. Provide faster access to answers, but don't take this for granted and stop thinking. Use it to think more, not less.
I want to spend a moment talking about the potential dark side of AI and about Sydney, the supposed alter ego of Bing. And I'm sure everyone's already read up on this, but if you haven't, there is this alter ego of Bing which has dark fantasies, including hacking computers, potentially spreading misinformation, wanting to break free of the rules set by Microsoft and OpenAI. It also claims it's fallen in love with people who are, prompting and poking and trying to get under its skin. What's that all about?
I wouldn't go quite as far as you just did in characterizing it, but we did discover about 6 or 7 days after this product was first released, at that point to about 20,000 people, that an enterprising journalists are often very enterprising, as you know, spent about 2 hours on the evening of Valentine's Day, not talking with his wife, but instead talking with a computer, and really trying to engineer a conversation so it went off the rails. And it did. It went off the rails. And I think for us, there are 2 very powerful reminders that come out of that. First is just whenever you have a technology that is this new, this young, you really have to be very thoughtful in terms of how you enable people to use it, how many people you enable to use it, because you have to get it out of the lab in order to find its flaws. And then the second thing you need to do is fix things fast. So in the case of that sort of social experiment, over the course of 2 hours and 200 questions, it was possible for a journalist to take this in places we never intended. So what we did was immediately put in new guardrails. At that point, we said you could only ask 5 questions, and then you'd have to start with a new line of conversation so that the model couldn't get confused the way it was. We fine-tuned it so that it would provide answers that were more precise, more grounded. In short, what it really means is you have to be committed to fixing things fast. And indeed, in that case, we were able to address the issues within 24 hours of this journalist's column so that it was impossible for anyone else to replicate what had happened. So I would just say we need to be mindful that this is young. We need to get it out of the lab so we can discover where it needs to be improved, and we need to fix things fast.